version control system, or in short called as VCS. We have seen in the previous video the strategy of taking backup and then a rollback from the backup. How about a tool can do that for us? Version control system does exactly same thing and much more than that. A version control system is all about managing multiple versions of a document or a script or a configuration file or any kind of text files you have. It can maintain multiple versions of it. We have seen previous video how we are managing versions manually. Version control system can do that automatically by themselves. Also, we can anytime go back in time. We can revert from the previous changes. We can see the history of changes, what all changes we made along the time. So you must be assuming that yes, version control system we use so we can revert back if something goes wrong. We can keep track of the files, but it does more than that. It's not the only reason why we use VCS. Yes, it's like a time machine. We can go back in time for our files. It's a time machine for our files. We can go back and revert whatever we want, or we can just see what all we did previously. It will be very helpful for the developers who would be managing hundreds and thousands of files. They'll be writing a lot of code, so they'll have a collection of all their code, which we call it as source code, and they would be creating a software or a web application, anything, and it's very important for them to track on daily basis what all changes they are making. And in such kind of project where they're developing a software or they're creating some application, there will be multiple developers who will be working on the same source code. So now it's not only about tracking the changes of one individual, it's tracking changes or history of all the individuals in a team. So whatever changes they make on the source code, that can be tracked. We have a history of it, and then if we want, we can roll back to a particular version. So we can see we get two major benefits. One, we are tracking version, we're maintaining version, tracking the history. Second, multiple people can merge their changes in one source code. Now again, there are different types of version control system. Initially, when the idea was just to track the changes, we had localized version control system. You are working on your code or your configuration file, you keep track of everything locally on your system, and we use localized version control systems for that. But then the requirement was also of merging changes of multiple people, multiple developers working on the same source code. For such kind of versioning, we need a centralized version control system, a single place where they can put all their code and they can maintain also the code locally. Whenever they are making a change, they push it to the centralized server. Some examples are CVS, SVN, and there are plenty more. Localized is very simple. We have some files and we have multiple versions of that file, and this will be maintained by our localized version control system. But centralized, the same versioning will be done at the server. There will be a server that will be maintaining the versions of your files, and then you have your different people with their own system, so they will be accessing the version, checking in and checking out the changes that they are making to the server and not locally on their computer. So you can say it's most of the time we use centralized version control system when we are working on projects. Like examples are CVS, Perforce, SVN. These are centralized version control system. There will be a centralized server which will maintain all your versions of your files, and from your computer you will check in and check out. So the server will maintain the official copy, and then in your local machine you will make changes to your files. Once you do all the modification, then for versioning you will push it to the centralized server. Or if you are joining a team or someone else is joining in the team, then they will check out all that data, all that version control code, or all that source code from centralized server to their local machine. That's checkout, or you can say checkout is like a download, or check-in is more like upload. So there will be centralized server and developers will be checking in and checking out their code on that server. But there are so many downsides also of centralized. You need to have a server, you need to have someone who maintains this server. It should be always up and running. If the server is down, then nobody would be able to version their code. So server is a dependency over here. How about we can have similar method, similar approach, but not have a server? That's a distributed version control system. In distributed version control system, everyone will have the complete copy, full copy of the source code of the repository. So we call it as a repository, where you keep the source code. In traditional, you have the repository on the server, and every client or every developer or everyone in the team will be checking in and checking out from that repository. So repository will be maintained only at the server. Whereas in distributed, everyone will have the full copy of the repository and all the check-in and check-out. So now here the process will be little different. We will be maintaining, committing the code locally. The versioning will be done locally, just like a localized version control system. It will be done locally. Once you're done with the changes, you can merge your change back to the centralized one. But everybody will have full copy. So if I'm joining the team, I will clone all that repository to my local machine. I will make whatever changes I want, then I will merge it back to the centralized one. So here the server is not just, it's not a version control server, it's a repository server that will just host your repository. Or you can say in distributed, the server is just like a storage, a centralized storage where you keep your data. And in distributed, versioning will be done locally on your system. So here there is no check-in, check-out. Here we clone or we pull the changes in distributed. Okay, complete copy. If there is any changes, we pull it and it will be merged with our local repository. Then when you make the change, you check in and check out in the local repository only in your own computer. Check in, check out, commit. Commit is a process. After making the change, we tell our localized version control system that we are done with the change. Now keep track of it. We commit our data locally. Once we are ready, we have done everything, all the commit locally, then we want to merge it with the centralized. We will push the change to the server. Again, here there is no server. The server is just hosting your repository. So one thing important you have to keep in mind, in distributed, server will not track your versions. Server is not doing version controlling. It's done locally. Server is just hosting your repository. So multiple people in the team can access it. And the most famous distributed version control system is Git. Well, Git, initially when you use it, may seem like it's a localized version control system. You can use Git for localized, you can use Git for distributed, and you can use Git for various purpose in version controlling. It's the most famous version control system out there because of its simplicity. You can get very quickly started with Git and its flexibility. Git can manage its centralized repository on various platforms like GitHub, Bitbucket, AWS Code Commit, and there are so many more. So there are a lot of cloud-based centralized Git repositories. You can set up locally also in your infrastructure. Or if you don't want to work with the team, you are the only person who is going to keep track everything, you can do it everything locally also. You don't need any server, you don't need any cloud-based systems also for that. Yeah, yes, I love Git, and I'm never going back to the previous version control system. That's about me, but not only me actually, there's so many people who love Git. They don't want to go back to any other version control system. And I see so many projects that are coming up nowadays. They are moving from their centralized version control system to Git and GitHub, Git and AWS Code Commit, Git and Bitbucket, like that. There are so many hosting platform also for Git. So Git is distributed version control system, and it is also local, and it will keep track of any kind of file that you have, text files, source code, your PPTs, you're writing any book or anything. You can keep track of all those changes also. It was developed by Linus Torvalds, same guy who created Linux for us, and I'm a big fan. So big and important point in Git, it does versioning locally. Keep that in mind. For collaboration or merging changes with others, you can use platforms like GitHub, Bitbucket, AWS Code Commit, and there are many more. And these are examples of cloud-based Git repositories. You can have local Git repositories also for merging with multiple people for collaboration, like GitLab is there. Okay, then now let's get set ready for doing versioning with Git. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.